Hi, this is Mike Matthews, Superintendent of Manhattan Beach Unified School District, and I want to talk to you about the Local Control and Accountability Plan, or the LCAP, that we're developing this year in compliance with the budget process dictated by the state of California. So what the LCAP is a part of the budget process, as I said. Many of you may know we have a new funding formula, the local control funding formula, that is a vastly different way of funding schools. What's happening is that whereas it used to be that all districts in California receive pretty close to the same amount of money, that will no longer be true. Districts will now receive supplemental funds based on the number of English learners they have and the number of economically disadvantaged students they have, students on free and reduced lunch. So whereas Manhattan Beach does not have a large number of those students, we will in the near future be receiving far less revenue from the state than districts with a higher proportion of those students. But all districts, including Manhattan Beach, have to develop a new set of performance goals for these English language students and the economically disadvantaged students. And so that's what this process is about. So as I said, we have less than 5% of our students who are the target for the supplemental fund of our EL students and our economically disadvantaged students. And so we have about $330,000 that we can allocate for this in the 14-15 school year. That's a difficult amount for us because we have to divide that over 7 schools, and we'll see that it might be difficult to target the students that we want to assist. So with the community input process here is very important, and that's what I'm doing today. The email where you're seeing this link has a survey attached to it. I've also spoken to many of our PTAs already, and I'll be speaking to all the PTAs in the very near future. And so I'll be getting input from all parents, from all teachers, and from students as well. Be talking with our unions about this as well, and getting all kinds of input from a variety of sources as we develop our LCAP plan. These are the areas where the LCAP wants us to focus. So first of all, the conditions of learning. How are our facilities? Are our teachers credentialed? Is our curriculum aligned with the state? How's our student achievement data? And you know, in Manhattan Beach, it's very high quality over here. Are students involved in activities? What's our parent involvement? Attendance data, suspension data, graduation data, and post-graduation data. And I'll share some of these with you later in the presentation. During March and April, I'll be meeting with parents at each school, making board presentations, meeting with our teaching and learning committee, talking to the PTA Council, which represents all PTAs, conferring with our teachers union, working with our English learner parents, and meeting with faculties as well. As we develop these goals, they'll be shaping how we guide our district next year. You probably know that we develop goals each year. The slide you see is for our 3 main goals for this year. We have these 3 goals that we're working on, and as we get feedback from this process, not only will it assist the students it's designed to assist, but it will actually, I believe, guide our district for the entire year in the goals we want to have. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to look at some key data throughout the year, and I've gotten more questions about this from parents, and we're expanding the data we're looking at. But here are some of the data we're looking at as we develop our LCAP. So first of all, A through G requirements. A through G requirements are what it takes for a student to be eligible to go to a UC or a CSU here in California. So the statewide average is 37.6%. 42% of girls and 33% of boys. If you've been following recently, you know that girls are being much more successful in high school and in college than boys are. It's kind of turned upside down in that regard. At Miracosta, our A through G number is a strong 88%. Almost 90% of our students graduate from high school college ready, meeting all the A through G requirements. But it is very interesting how we look at girls and boys here. Girls are being successful at an extraordinarily high rate, and boys, while far above the state average, are lagging behind the girls in success. That was a data piece that we're going to continue to look at and that I've had a lot of interesting conversations with parents about. AP Equity and Excellence. One of my points of view that I always discuss with our board and with parents is the fact that I would love to see every student who wants to go to four-year college be successful and pass at least one AP exam. I'm not saying 3 AP exams a year, I'm not saying 4 AP exams, but if you can have successful experience with at least one college level class before you graduate, data shows you will do better and have a higher chance to succeed in college. These are our numbers. You can see we've gone up since 2010 from 48% to over 56%, and I think that's a strong improvement. I would love to see us get in that 70 to 80% area, and we are working on that with our high school. Earning a four-year degree, we now can actually track students. We cannot track their grades or their majors or details about them, but we know if they've enrolled in a school, if they were a Coaster graduate, and we know if they have earned a degree from a school. So the data we're looking at shows that the percentage of the graduating class of 24 through 2007 who earned a four-year degree is about 56% from the class of 2007. Now that's within 6 years, and sometimes it takes longer than that, but that's data we are looking at and trying to figure out how we can make that a higher number as well. Going to four-year college, we're seeing that from 2004 to 2013, we've increased that number from 55% to 62%. These are the numbers who go directly into four-year schools straight out of high school. We have a large number who go into two-year schools with the intention of transferring into four-year schools, but these are our four-year school numbers. The California High School Exit Exam, this is the first piece of data we're looking at where we actually can compare the students who are English learners and economically disadvantaged. So you see, again, this is the exam that students are required to pass before they graduate from high school. The first chance you can take it is in 10th grade. So you see here that 98% of our students pass it in math. But what's interesting is 100% of our EL students passed it, and 100% of our economically disadvantaged students passed this exam. So one of the issues is that our EL students and our economically disadvantaged students aren't doing worse, at least in this test, than our students who are not in those categories. Similarly, in English language arts, 5 out of 7 EL students did pass it in 10th grade, and all of our economically disadvantaged students did pass it. So it would make some sense that our EL students, some of them would not pass the English language arts part of the exam, but again, those are not numbers that are off the charts in terms of worrisome achievement. Next, we see our STAR test data, and I think you see some similar things here. Look in the elementary school, we're looking at in ELA, it's 91% of our students are proficient or advanced, and it's almost the same amount in EL and economic disadvantage. Same thing we see for in math in that area. Middle school, things get a little more challenging, and we see some difference in ELA there. There's more of a gap here between the 89% and 63%. This is a interesting stat here because if you are not taking algebra in 8th grade, you have a hard time being proficient on that exam. So it isn't always a very descriptive test, but still, we look at that and see numbers where perhaps there is some concern there. High school ELA, we see a small difference there, but high school math, again, probably a bigger difference there. So as I've talked to parents, this has been an area where we're kind of looking at, but the other areas seem to be of equal achievement or relatively equal achievement. Next, we look at our STAR data with English Language Arts. I compared us to San Marino and La Cañada Unified. These are districts that are, 1, 2, and 3 in the state. San Marino 1, La Cañada 2, and Manhattan Beach 3. And just looking at our ELA data. And what I hope you see here is, and what we've talked about in the meetings with parents so far, is very similar patterns of achievement, a few differences here and there, but we're comparing our scores to the best of the best and we see that we're right there with it. I think all of us would like to be at the top of that chart, but again, it's an area where we don't see gigantic differences between how we achieve and how these other high achievement districts achieve. In math, however, we do see some differences. This is the data from 2013, and again, you see that in the elementary school, we have the same patterns as do San Marino and La Cañada, but there is a change in grades 6, 7, and 8 before we get back on track, and even then in 10th grade. So again, as there were math concerns with the STAR data, these are somewhat interesting because we don't see the same patterns with that. Again, most places would want our scores, but again, we are trying to achieve with the very best in the state, and so this gap is something that we should be looking at. When we did this, we said, okay, let's just make sure that we went back one more year, and we still see that same grades 2 through 5 similarity, in the grades 9 through 11 similarity, and in this case there's a grade 8 similarity, and they both go up, but there's still that gap in grades 6 and 7. So this remains something we want to look at, and is a good piece of data for us to examine. Finally, we'll be looking at other data as we go forward, and I'll be glad to answer any of your questions about that. These are some of the things that we are examining. I did not put them on here, one, to keep the presentation brief, but two, because we do not see major differences in those data at this point. But those are ones we'll be looking at as we conduct this entire project. The LCAP presentation I've given to parents, I hope it gives you some background as you prepare to answer the survey questions. I thank you for taking the time to look at this, and as always, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you very much for all you do for Manhattan Beach.